Hello, and welcome to another episode of Superhero Discussions. My name is Greg, the Bad Daddy 52 on Twitter, and today we are here to talk about a fantastic book and movie. We're going to have a lot of people on the show today. Great cast with us. Let's go ahead and introduce everybody. Mr. Snell, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing very well. It is raining here big time, but other than that, it's quite nice. And I don't know why I say that. I like the smell of rain. How's everyone else doing?
I'm doing fantastic, man. Lisa, what's up?
Doing well. I'm excited to chat about this today and up not as quite as early as Travis, but up and smiling.
Yeah, it's still early for a Sunday. It's weird to get up and have to, do something on a Sunday. And then Katie, what's up?
Hello. Good.
So me and Katie are the lucky ones. We're East Coasters, so it's like 10 o'clock where we're at. So it's not too bad. But...
Just brag. Why don't you?
You've already had your coffee and everything.
Actually, I'm on my second cup right now. Huh?
I'm getting my first cup in right now.
Well, the first cup was just the cream and sugar, and the second cup I had to put a little bit of whiskey in it. So it's my day off. Don't judge me. But anyway, so we're here tonight to talk, or this morning, not tonight. Gosh, I never done a podcast in the morning. We're here this morning to talk about the Flashpoint. This one was you guys had this in the plans, and I didn't even realize we were doing this until about a week ago. But I'm always down to talk about a great book and a great movie. And luckily, I was able to watch the movie last night and then read the book this morning, so I can point out a few of the differences. There are some. Basically follows the same story, but there are some differences, nothing major. But without further ado, let's get into it. Overall reviews. Start with you, Katie. Well, let's start with you, Lisa. Overall reviews of the movie. What'd you think?
This movie is actually what sparked my husband to become like obsessed with the Flash, and it actually led to us watching the Flash show. So prior to this movie coming out, I was not super interested in a lot of some of the other DC characters as much as like Batman. But a lot of people recommended this movie to me. I saw it. I absolutely fell in love. I started watching the show. It just launched a whole nother part of the fandom for me. I think the movie is so good. I recommend it constantly to people, and they're always like, well, I don't really like animated movies. And I'm like, that doesn't matter. You've got to watch this one. It's so good.
Oh, yeah. I agree with you 100%. And it's funny that you said this started making you watch the Flash television show, because if you really enjoy this book or this movie, the way they did Flashpoint on the show is really, really disappointing. You could have had a whole season with that, and they botched that one. But Travis, what'd you think, man?
Well, one, yeah, you gave me terrible flashbacks about that. I remember telling my fiance, who had no idea what Flashpoint was, like, "Oh, it's coming! I can't wait!" And then it's 2 episodes, and here we are. But so this, I think. The best thing about this story is if you look at Barry Allen, or you look at superheroes in general. So this is a guy, he can run super fast. He works for the police force, and he's a superhero with all these fighting criminals and villains and whatnot. There's all these things that you can't really relate to on a personal level. Like, of course, we'd stop bad guys, but we can't do it the way he does. I'm not fighting anyone named Captain Boomerang. So when you got these like kind of godlike characters, it's sometimes be hard to make them relatable for any franchise. And I think that was always the biggest thing for me, is that I always liked the Flash, but I think this was a turning point in 2011. The comic came out, just of actually loving the Flash or being very interested in Barry Allen. And I remember taking a deeper dive, and now I think he's in it. If not, he's probably somewhere in my top 10 characters as far as comic book characters goes. And I think it's a very relatable story. Also, we can't time travel. At least I don't know. You guys maybe wouldn't tell me if you could time travel, so you guys could have this skill, and I don't know, but. With Flash going back and trying to save his mom, I think it's very relatable because, you've had that conversation at the age of 5 with friends as far as what would you do time travel? What would you do? And for this reason, it's a very specific reason, but it makes sense to this character, how he lost his mother, and just how it impacted his life. And I think just you get a lot of good stuff as well. I think I'm kind of a sucker for any what if tale. I like that in just even regular dramas where it's just like, oh, this episode's like, what happens if this character did this? And you get to kind of have some play fun on relationships or characters' lives and everything like that. So you got the what if factor, which is great. I think the what if world that they build is really cool, which we'll talk about. But I think that's what just made it relatable. If he unlocks his power and he kind of just is fed up and thinks, man, I really got screwed out of that chance to have a childhood or a life with my mom, and that's kind of relatable for anybody losing a friend or a family member, right? You think about, oh, I wish they were still here. So for him to go back, it is kind of a, Thawne kind of points out that maybe it's a villainous thing in a way, but he didn't mean it that way. It was an innocent, he thought it was going to be an innocent thing, but it took a big mudslide. But I'm a big fan of this. I'm a big fan of the movie. I don't think I have too many like negatives in the movie. There's a few here and there, but as far as DC anime movies, it's up there. It's in my top 3.
Okay, yeah, this is not in the continuity that I'd watched with the other movies that led up to Apocalypse War. I don't believe, is it? Because I don't think I've ever seen this movie. I know I've read the book, and I was almost positive I'd seen the movie because I thought I watched all DC animated movies. But watching it last night, I just noticed that just from reading the book, I was like, I don't remember that, and I don't remember that, or that seems different. And I realized about 20 minutes into it, I was like, I've never seen this movie. So I got to experience it for the first time last night. I've read the book a couple times, but you're right, Travis. I agree. It's a fantastic movie. It's got a lot of different things going on with it. I do love the alternate worlds they've built up, the alternate universe, or the parallel timeline, I guess you would say, where all the characters stand, and the story is very strong. It makes you like you said, it makes you feel for Barry Allen, and there's even points in this book where people, they point out I would do the same thing, and if given the situation, you probably would too in the place he was in. But the repercussions, man, you got to worry about the repercussions, and the repercussions of that are what makes this book so good, and how they're able to change it. And like I said, I didn't notice a ton of differences. Well, I didn't notice a ton of major difference between the book and the movie. I'll point out some as we talk about the movie, but overall, man, I loved both of them. The artwork's great. I loved the way everything. It's just beautiful. Love the artwork in the book and in the movie, and it's great how the movie looks so similar to the book as far as the artwork. Like there are some scenes or some like entire pages in this book that it's drawn. You can see it exactly drawn from this page, words and everything. Like a lot of this words from was exactly the same as in this book. So it's pretty interesting to see that kind of dynamic. I never read a book or watched a movie and then read a book immediately afterwards, or vice versa. So this is my first time ever doing that. It's pretty fun. But Katie, you got any thoughts on the overall?
So I'm fairly certain. So one, I wasn't able to rewatch it. I'm just gonna go ahead and point that out there. Couldn't find it. This was actually my first exposure to DC after the Justice League animated show, like in the early 2000s. So this kind of got me back into it. It was a very big throw off because I wasn't expecting the storyline. Again, I'd never read the comics. I think this is the first time I've actually told you all that. But it kind of got me back into it, and then I jumped into like Arrow because we didn't have the Flash at the time. But I saw this. I'm fairly certain that like as soon as it came out, because I was like, oh, DC. DC's always been my favorite comic book property, so that's always a good thing. But no, overall, I thought it's very well animated. The storyline, once you kind of accept that it's different from what you typically get in the average DC fan's life, it works really well. All of the voices are really good and everything. So, yeah.
Speaking of voices, I did not realize that Michael B. Jordan plays the voice of Cyborg in this. Did y'all?
Yep. No.
I did not until my fiance pointed out, and I was just, it's crazy to think because 2011 he was still kind of climbing, but he's not the star that he was now. So it's just, you hear like, is that really Michael B. Jordan? And so yeah, there you go. He's played Human Torch, he's played Killmonger, and I guess he's played Cyborg as well. But good casting.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I discovered that because last night when I was finishing up the movie, I was helping my wife cut my dog's toenails, which I have a big pit bull, so I had to hold him down while she's doing that. So I couldn't turn the movie off, so it was rolling through the credits. And there's actually a post-credit scene too. Did you know about that?
I did not know about that. What is the post-credit scene?
The post-credit scene is it zooms out from Earth into space, and then a hole opens up, and a bunch of parademons fly out of the hole.
So yeah, and I think it is maybe part of that, like the lead up to Apocalypse War, because they do. I imagine it was just for marketing purposes to call it Justice League Flashpoint, because it is like, I guess that it, like, you can make that argument because all the Justice League are in there, but it just feels such like it's almost like the Captain America Civil War argument, where it's like Avengers 2.5 or Captain America. It's kind of like that, or yeah, all the Justice League is in this, but it still feels like it's very much just Barry's story. But I was gonna ask everybody, what is their kind of favorite element or the most interesting element of the kind of alternate timeline that gets created?
Go ahead, ladies.
So for me, that's an easy answer, and you probably know what I'm about to say, but it's Thomas Wayne as Batman as opposed
Mhm.
to Bruce Wayne. I found that hugely fascinating. The Joker being Bruce's mother is freaking genius. It's
Mhm.
so dark, it's so messed up, and I love that Thomas Wayne, because he's so hardened and angry, even using like his doctor skills to like possibly torture and maim people or
Mhm.
threaten them with that knowledge, and then even point out the irony that he used to heal people. Like all of that stuff was like probably my favorite. And I do have the book because, like I said, my husband loved this so much he went out and started reading The Flash. But we actually have the Flashpoint main story, and we've got just the Flash because they had like these series of books that you could get that focused more on each character. I guess it was
Mhm.
from their comic line. So we've got the Flash, we've got the Batman one, which I've read, and the Wonder Woman one as well. And yeah, that kind of went off on a tangent. But
No.
the best part about it, I think, is probably Thomas Wayne. And so I recommend the Batman book version of this story as well as to supplement it.
That was actually going to be the answer I was going to go with because it is a very interesting answer. But I'll put another one out there. I like the dynamic of the Aquaman and Wonder Woman and the taking
Yes.
over the world type deal because it is a complete flip from where Aquaman and Wonder Woman are in the regular timeline because they have the ability to take over the world, the Atlanteans and the Amazons at any moment if they wanted to. And in the regular timeline we have there, they don't.
Hmm.
So it's not nice to see, but it's crazy to see the exact flip side of that where this is like it's basically if you looked at it where if Superman was evil, type deal. It's this story like that. It's man, we'd really be screwed. Like there
Yeah.
would be no fixing that. There's no way we'd win that battle. And I think even Thomas Wayne in this is that's kind of his sentiment about it is that there's no winning this. So
Yeah, he's not
Mhm.
wrong. Like, they're basically gods and we're nothing compared to them. So if they decide to turn on us, there's nothing we can do.
right, right.
And I'm always not like surprised because it's a what if kind of different universe, but how kind of brutal and vicious they make Wonder Woman in this, it kind of shows too multiple points that if she really wanted to, she could like you're saying could take over the world, but she kind of handles almost I think handles everyone in this movie. The only thing that takes her out is kind of the flashpoint, like the world actually imploding. So no one actually dethrones her, no one takes her out. Like Arthur tries, she takes her down, and it's just she's just super cold in this movie, and it's such a dichotomy because it's with Thomas Wayne. I think that's probably my favorite part too. But it's just like okay, Bruce is Bruce and him have similarities. Thomas Wayne is definitely more like Greg, you're Zack Snyder's Batman, so I'm sure you love that. I'm sure, but I think that's the thing where okay, there's levels of darks to Batman, right? But we're wondering if she's most majority of time this very hopeful, kind of optimistic character that is will resort to violence, but is always trying to look for the good before you go to that. Where it's almost like violence is option number one. Like when Mara comes in there, she doesn't even try to detain her. She doesn't just fire. She just goes for the killing blow and obviously does, and that sets up a whole kind of range of series of unfortunate events. But it's just, I think that is a interesting character because even Arthur, he is darker, but he's still kind of, to me, I draw parallels with Wonder Woman. It shows whatever happened in this world, she's changed the most, in my opinion. Because Thomas Wayne, again,
Hmm.
we didn't meet like a lot of him, but again, his son and him maybe share kind of a similar mindset. So you can kind of draw those lines. But with her, it's just a very big shift. But I think it works. I think it's my only con, which is it's very small. It's just kind of like what Lisa was talking about with the other comic books. I think this movie could maybe use like a little more time because it's only 120 an hour and 20 because then you got
Yeah.
credits stuff like that. I think you could add another 10 minutes because I'm interested more of like the Batman stuff and Wonder Woman stuff. But then it is like kind of succinctly very story. But yeah, I really like those dichotomy. And then I'll throw it to Kay. But I also really like what they do with Superman. It's like a nice little twist, this like
Yes.
kind of human battery sort of thing. But Katie, what are you thinking?
So I definitely like seeing the different side of Wonder Woman. I completely agree with you. Like just seeing that twist and seeing how far she can go versus how in the regular storyline she chooses to believe in people. She tries to use violence as the last option, like you said. I think it's a unique twist on her character and really makes you think twice, especially since this is the first movie in the DCAU. If you follow it all the way through, you could say, wow, she could choose to do like a Flashpoint here and like just like totally waylay this guy, but she's reasonable here. So that was probably my favorite twist.
Well, it's funny that we bring up the points about Wonder Woman and Aquaman, and like you talked about the scene with Mira, because I read just the main Flashpoint main storyline, and I know that there are other stories that tie into it, like Lisa was talking about. But in the movie, they show that mirror scene and everything else, and they give you a little bit of the background of Aquaman and Wonder Woman. And I'm sure that in the kind of tie-in stories, they probably do that. In the Flashpoint book, they don't do that. There's no talk of them being lovers. I mean, there is the one point where he says, "I can't believe I ever loved you," the same way he did in the movie. But you don't see her kill Mira. You don't see any of that. So that's all that in the main storyline of the book. That's one big change, because I noticed that whenever I was rereading the book this morning, I was like, "Oh, that's the scene they completely added in there." It's but it gives a little more bulk to the story, or a little more flesh, something to chew on.
Yeah, and I think that's a potential fun dynamic. Obviously, it's alternate universe, so you don't see that much, but like daytime soap operas do the what if episodes, and it's like, oh, what are these, couples that are swapping and whatnot. But it is kind of a fun dichotomy, because I remember even just like when I saw this movie, but then I read it, I just never, that's just not a couple you kind of put together. Like I know New 52 went the Wonder Woman and Superman route, but that was kind of like, oh, I've seen that, we could hint at that, I kind of get that. But that was like Greg were talking about earlier about them taking over the world. It is a power thing, but it's just also, it's characters that I didn't see meshing. But again, this is a universe where it's completely different. And that's the thing back to Wonder Woman, is it's not that she is holding back as her being a good, decent person, but it feels like that after watching this, where it's just like, man, she could, if she wanted to, she could like kind of unleash everything. And it almost feels like against her villains, against anybody, she kind of has to hold back her true nature to, not become kind of what she goes down this road. And I like, though, that she is very cold, but she keeps her humanity. The last image we get of her is her holding Arthur while everything's imploding. So it's kind of, everything's a mean to an end. She will do it, but she's not completely shut off. She still has those emotions. She's gonna do it if she has to. She's gonna make the final kill, but she's gonna feel some pity for you. So I love everything they do with that character in here.
All right, good.
Oh, I was going to say, too, that I don't know why I didn't think about this. I'm sure if I grew up with these comics more, I'd think about it more. But another interesting thing about their pairing is just, the fact that Aquaman is from Atlantis and she's from Themyscira, and they're both sort of, ancient myths. And so, of course, that at some point you would want to put them together in some way. And I guess, like, watching the movie the first time, I thought about that. I'm like, oh, yeah, I guess they're both kind of from the same, pretend time period, or whatever you want to call it, same myth. So I think it's interesting to put them together. Like, why would they not join forces? And yeah, I think, I like the idea. I think what's really throws you off about Aquaman is that just he's kind of like Barry Allen with Iris West. That's how he is with Mira. So there's not really thinking about him with a lot of other pairings. But yeah, I mean, just like you might put her with Superman, of course, Aquaman is another option too.
Well, going back to what you were saying about the I lost my train of thought. Going back to what you were saying about them being kind of ancient, the civilizations, and how that you kind of look at them at the same timeline. You can almost compare it to, I guess it may be a trope, but the storyline it kind of runs through is, it reminds me of kind of Lord of the Rings. You have dwarfs, you have elves, and you have man. And here you have Atlanteans, and you have Themyscirans, and you have man. And for some reason, man is the one who rules the earth, is kind of takes domain over the majority of the earth, but they're definitely not the most powerful. They're definitely not the most accomplished, but somehow or another, it's like the greater beings kind of let them do their thing, type deal. And this is just the what if you had.
Right.
I was just gonna say, I think that's a good point, because I don't think until this movie, comic book, I really was thinking of, I know it's 2011, but I still kind of always thought of Wonder Woman and Aquaman as just solo characters. I know they had their legacy, I know they had their place where they came from, but this really put in perspective of, no, they can lead entire countries or worlds into battle.
Yeah.
But I never really thought of that way, because at the end of this movie, you see, that's one thing is, like, obviously people talk about this could potentially be a live action movie and whatnot, and I would definitely love to see it, and I think also you can pull it off after things like Endgame and stuff like that. But the scope of the kind of final 15, 20 minutes of this movie is massive. If you look at like cities are being destroyed, you have Amazons and Atlanteans just going at it, and that's where this was the first time I did kind of think about the way you're talking about, Greg, as far as like a kind of wars and factions. I never really thought about those characters like that, and now after that I do. But I was just like, oh, this is Diana and Arthur. But then no, it's like they're king and queen. The amount of resources and power, not just power they have in like their own selves, but just power as far as calling of will. Hey, I need you to do this. It really set in after watching this. So I love all that stuff. At the finale of this movie is really good.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and they also make Wonder Woman. We were talking about how violent she was in the movie, or how gruesome it was in the movie. It's a little less in the book. Not that the attitude's different, but it's not as graphic in the book. They don't show as many deaths in the book, and they definitely don't show how people die in the book a lot of times.
Yeah, there's a lot of blood in this movie, to be honest. Like sometimes characters get punched, and it's just like, it's like, oh wow, okay. Well, and that like Barry is not looking good at the end of this movie. He's been to the ringer.
Yeah, but like the scene where she kills Steve Trevor in the movie. Spoilers for anybody who's, if you're listening to this, the scene where she kills Steve Trevor in the book, it doesn't necessarily show her kill him. It shows her hanging him like he is, and then it shows him on the ground, and then it kind of goes to the next frame, and it doesn't, but in the movie, she just straight up kills him.
Yeah.
So
wow.
it's pretty crazy to see. But let's see.
Greg, I wanted your thoughts because you're a big Batman guy like me, but I didn't hear you talk about what did you think about the Thomas Wayne stuff?
I liked it because it was the alternate timeline. So I mean, you can vary away from what a classic Batman would be. Now I know you and I have a back and forth debate about Batman killing and using guns, and in the movie he uses a lot of guns. I don't think one time in the book he uses a gun, which actually kind of upset me because the very end of the book, or the book and the movie, whenever Batman kills Thawne, in the movie he shoots him. Mm-hmm. In the book, that's the classic scene of him holding the sword up through Thawne's chest, and that's something you hang up on your wall. That's a great picture, and I can't believe that for the movie they changed that to a gun, because in this movie he used a lot of guns, and I don't like that. I don't like Batman using a gun as a main weapon because that's what he does. But this is a totally different Batman. This Batman has a flask on him at all times. Like, I mean, he's drinking all the time. He's got a scruffy beard. I mean, he's kind of, I guess, a 7 o'clock shadow because it's pretty out there. But I do actually really enjoy the suit.
Yeah,
I think it's a cool take. Red.
Yeah, I like those shoulder, whatever that shoulder attire is going on. I like the pointiness of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, for the argument of that we had before, I don't like how violent this Batman would be. I don't want my Batman to be like this, because he with Yo-Yo, he just straight up threw her off the roof and was going to kill her, and Cyborg saved her. Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly how it happens in the book too. So I mean, word for word that scene.
You should show me tie-in too, because like he and the Penguin run Wayne Casino, and it's like it's really dark. It's really cool.
Well, you gotta think like Batman again is kind of naturally a dark character. Like other than maybe the '60s and Brave and the Bold, he's not usually having a good time, right? And you gotta think about this Batman. If you could think about Bruce Wayne versus Thomas Wayne, somehow he got it worse. He lost a child, which most times, generally, people don't outlive their children if you're lucky. But then also you had the dichotomy of his wife turning into the Joker, which I agree with Lisa. It was such a fun spin. I just remember seeing those first pages of just like, no, they're not going to do this. And again, it's not like a massive story, even though I would love the way that sometimes people, it's kind of like the comic books right now, they're doing a comic book based on the animated series. I would love if they did a universe comic book of maybe some earlier years of what happened here, because I always think there's just so much you can play with. But I think that was just such a nice little touch. But if you think about this guy, he's lost his child. His wife, the woman he loves, has become his. We know what the Joker is, so if she's become that, not good. And you can see in the actual the solo comic book, there's still like little parts of Martha left. There's still like, it's kind of the same thing as Joker, where she is insane, but she still loves Bruce and everything. And that kind of puts that spin on it, because people always kind of talk about that dichotomy of Joker being obsessed with Batman and there being like this weird love-hate relationship there. But you get that in like twofold with the husband and wife. And yeah. I know it's not it's a different continuity and whatnot, but I think the Joker is a character that, as far as like even Robert Pattinson's Batman coming up, I don't think it needs to be male, and I think that I'm excited one day. That's why I'm always down for Flashpoint if it does happen, because I'd like to see all these different versions. With Batman, yeah, I'm not a biggest fan of him being violent or killing. I'm always the guy that says I get Batman has to kill, but I think it's like the Thawne situation where it has to be in the moment where everything could go wrong. I always like that because I think Batman should be the guy smarter than everyone else to go, I don't have to kill these people. I can find a way to take them out. I can find a way to take away their guns. To me, the killing route is kind of like Frank Castle. It's like, okay, he just does machine gun and he's just brute force. But with Joker, and even like I said, whether it's Robert Pattinson or in the future, I do really want to see film. I want to honestly see anybody play the Joker. I know there was some like running gag with Twitter of like every year we should get a new Joker with a new actor, just because there's always like a different dichotomy. But I would love to see that in the future. Like I said, even with Pattinson, there's not that character doesn't really need to be male. That's not issuing his finger. It's just a character that has lost his mind and is obsessed with Batman, and it's pretty easy to do with anybody. So I've always loved all the twists they've done, and that's where again I can enjoy this Batman, because like, oh, this alternate universe, my brain clicks off and goes, oh, this isn't Bruce Wayne, so I don't feel bad. Thomas Wayne though, what a jerk. But yeah, and my last point is I think that they give him just lots of good dry humor. Him and Flash's back and forth the entire time is really, especially when they're trying to get him back into the Speed Force. Just that whole like putting him on the chair, everything like that. They just have such a good chemistry. And it's very similar to Batman and Flash in regular time, but it just like Thomas Wayne just seems so annoyed with this character. But for the greater good, he helps him out.
Well, what you were talking about with the Joker there is that's what's so great about that character is that they usually don't have a background, origin story or a name really to the Joker. I mean, he's come with different ones over the years, but it's almost like they're, especially towards the end of the Joker movie, they're making it where the Joker is not really a person, but a state of mind or a kind of a disease type deal. So yeah, that's the best kind of character, because then you can put anybody in that role, because anybody could be the Joker. I mean, Bruce Wayne is Batman, Arthur Curry is Aquaman. You're not going to change that. Not everybody can just come and become that. But if the Joker is a sickness or a disease that you get, which is kind of what they're trying to play it off as, you could cast anybody as that, and that would be awesome. And I think that's a great idea for the character, and I think it's kind of always been the idea. I mean, in earlier versions, of course, Joker was Joker, but as the character progressed throughout the years, it started becoming more of a fluid type thing where you see different versions and different variations of this Joker. So now we're thinking, well, maybe the Joker is just kind of a nemesis for Batman that, it's a disease, I guess I could say. Kind of repeating myself now.
I think that's why, and I know some people, because there's been rumors about Matt Reeves using him, people kind of roll their eyes, go, oh, another Joker. And I definitely get that, because we've got 10,000 Jokers. But I think that's why like writers and artists kind of jump at that idea, because it's a character, he's moldable clay. You could do anything. Like you said, there's versions of the Joker where it is kind of like a Dr. Jekyll Hyde, where he's sick and there could be something. There's versions where kind of the version I prefer, kind of like the Dark Knight, where he is the Joker and he could be a little mad, but then this almost like the animated series too, is he might just be faking this entire thing. He might not actually be crazy. This might just be a show to deter enemies. There's the Walking Phoenix route where no, he's just mentally ill, and that's the thing where that character, even in this world, giving her this origin as far as, okay, the death of her son, and plus Thomas Wayne beats that guy to pulp. Of course, Joe still believes it, but he snaps, right? So she sees all those things, she's shattered. Again, you could believe that as far as a mental state of the Joker. You go, oh, I can make that logic jump. So that's why I think like writers and directors, they like using the Joker, because like you said, we've seen that before, and even the Joker, like someone like myself, there's people that love the Jared Leto Joker, right? I'm not a fan of it, but that's a character that I don't think you could have any other kind of character or villain even take that leap with Jared Leto. I don't even think, for me, it's the tattoos, the look doesn't work. I just didn't enjoy the performance. But you couldn't do that with a Batman. You couldn't do that with a Red Skull. Red Skull's not going to be walking around in a club with tattoos on himself, But the Joker, you kind of go, oh, we could mold this, we could change this. So that's what I've always liked with that character. It's kind of an open book, and that's why, again, I kind of hope they go down this route, because I think there's just like, I want like a Kate Blanchett Joker or something like that in the future. I'd love to see that world. So.
Yeah. Have you guys seen the theories of I mean, I don't think it's true, but they're talking about, doing talks with who would be Joker. And some people were like, what if Robert Pattinson was Batman and Joker?
Yes!
I was like, after seeing his performance in The Lighthouse, and really in a lot of movies, Good Time too, it's like he would have been a good choice for the Joker as well. So That would be so neat to like.
I have seen that. That would be one of those things I think it would throw people off, but it would.
Yeah.
I would be there because people had joked about that too in Batman Begins era. Because like with American Psycho, Christian Bale, everyone was like, "Oh, well, just get
True.
Christian Bale to play the Joker. You don't need anybody else." But there could be it would have to be like a thin line of walking. But I would love to see it because they're kind of that double side of a coin, right? And I think we would find some story, and you could almost have the benefit if they did that of you don't have to announce the Joker. You just say, "Oh, the Joker's in this movie," but you never say who's playing him. And then you slowly like see his face, and you go like, you're gonna whisper to your mom beside, like, "Is that Robert Pattinson?" Like, I think it is. This is weird.
I don't know. I mean, it's kind of jokey. It kind of sounds like, White Ranger fighting Green Ranger. It doesn't doesn't feel like
It's a
it would
little
work,
hokey.
So,
It'd be hard to carry off for 2 hours or 3 hours or however long it's going to be.
Right.
But what if you go off the sickness path and then you just know that, like, he just has some blackout moments, and
Dark. Fight Club-ish.
Are you talking
Yeah.
about what you're talking about, Katie? Is him playing the Joker and Bruce Wayne or Batman as the same person, or are you talking about
yeah.
like? Okay,
What
see,
if-
I thought you were
what if
talking.
it that way, where Bruce Wayne had the sickness.
But how
I
would
think
you
people
fight
would
yourself?
revolt.
Yeah, how would you fight yourself?
You could do what they did recently. Like this would be, but this is again, like this is what I do like about with people talking about Flashpoint and talking about this movie maybe being live action. I love that we're at the point now where comic books, eventually comic book films, they are changing, but that's what they have to do, right? Whether you like Walking Phoenix Joker, whether you like Spider-Verse, which most people do, but you have to kind of take a bit more risks, and some are going to pay off and
True.
some aren't. But I think that's the thing where I don't know if they would do this, but for me, I would love to do the version of the Batman Who Laughs with that look, because that could be your excuse for getting Robert Pattinson to play a Joker-like character. Because the Batman Who Laughs is pretty much, he is the Joker. He's the Batman that got infected with Joker's blood, and you see, okay, with all his skills, all his attributes, all his money, what would the Joker do? And just even like it's horrifying imagery of just having these Robins on chains and they're just yelling crowbar, and it's scary stuff. But it's just that thing of, I do think eventually they're gonna get to a point where people will, no matter what, just be like, I'm tired of the Joker. That's why I thought, okay, female route, something different. But even something like that with Rob Pattinson, that could be the excuse to be like, oh, we're gonna get him to play this because it's him from a different dimension where Batman got infected. And honestly, I just want to see that design on screen of the spikes, and it's just very horror and very gothic. But yeah, it's you never know. Okay, there's a lot. That's what I like about comic films, just getting weirder. That's what I want. I want to see more weird stuff, and I hope, and more stuff like Flashpoint. Again, I think that's a good thing with Endgame, with Days of Future Past. People now are starting to get a bit more comfortable with alternate realities and what ifs, and like, okay, I'm kind of understanding the rules where you can't just leave with it. Like, I understand people's argument against even the Flash movie being Flashpoint, because you don't want to lead with this story, because there is a lot to it. But I think even general audiences now, they have a better understanding of superheroes and time travel and alternate dimensions and all that sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, I think the Batman Who Laughs is a great idea for a movie. I'd love to see a version like that one day, but the world's not ready for that right now.
They're not ready for it?
No, the public is
enough
not
going
ready. If you're going to have a new Batman, you better establish that Batman before you go the Batman Who Laughs route.
100%, yeah.
Because I mean, and I think Pattinson could do something like that. And you're right. I know you and I are a fan of that book. Like I would love to see that on the screen. You're right. It would have to be more of a horror-esque movie, but the world's not ready for that yet. like we are, but they're not. So.
Are you sure it's just not you, Greg? 'Cause the concept sounds really interesting.
All right, so we kind of derailed there, but back to Flashpoint. The beginning of it, just the beginning of the movie was. I love how they start this out, and that's funny because the movie and the book are once again different from the beginning, and I'm sure the tie-ins kind of lead into that. But the beginning, they have this whole battle scene. With Reverse Flash, and he has his team. It's basically all the rogues, Captain Boomerang, Captain Cold, a bunch of different people that are fighting against the Flash, and he gets stuck in that kind of putty. That's not even in the book at all. Like, all he does, I think that scene was set up in the movie to establish that he has friends, people that love him.
Just again, all the other, just again, all the other characters and whatnot.
Yeah, because in the book, all it does is kind of show a page of them, and he talks about how he has a life with friends and people he loves now and stuff like that. So I think that was what that was kind of set up for, to do that. But they do give all those characters, like everybody who was in that scene, even though they don't have that scene in the book, there's an extra scene in the book that has all those characters that wasn't in the movie. So they do kind of pay, like, at least homage to that of it. They keep the characters, or in the movie, they cut that scene out, but they at least kept the characters in there somehow by creating a new scene. And once again, that could be a scene in one of the tie-in tributary stories or whatever. But I thought that was kind of cool.
And I think
seeing the differences.
Yeah, and I think we've talked about that. Like me and Chris talk about that all the time. Marvel Alliance, like it's tough when you're doing the direct storyline of a comic book. Even in animation, you want to just throw it right on page, but you got to adapt and do things. So I think them putting all like the Justice League in there, it makes sense. Especially it's called Justice League Flashpoint technically in this universe, right? So you got to get Kevin Conroy in there for a little bit. I want to ask you because it's been a while since I read it. The reveal thought when he is, which I also hate. I love when Batman's like, who names their son Eobard or whatever.
Says that in the book.
Yeah. What when that reveal of Barry went back, is it at the end, or do we know that as the viewer reading the novel that happened, or is it the same way they kind of wait and then near the end? Because I can't remember that the ordering of things as far as the book goes.
You talking about the reveal of Barry going back in time the first time?
Yeah, like he's the one that caused it. Because in the movie, it's like, oh, what happened? Why is everything the same? And then Thawne clues him in like, oh, this is your fault.
Oh no, that happens in the book too. Thawne, there's the battle scene where he's explained everything to him, and he makes him realize that it was his fault. But as far as it happening in the book, it's the same way as in the movie. Like you just see him after that scene with Batman in the movie, he runs away, and then that's the Flashpoint. It's kind of the same way in the book. He runs away and then he wakes up in his lab, and you don't really know what's happened. So as a reader, if you're reading this, you don't really know what's happened. But it's interesting. This book is narrated by Thomas Wayne.
Oh really? Yeah, I kind of forgot about that. To me, I gotta reread it. It's been I've read it a few times since it came out. But yeah, I think I touched on that at some point. But I love Thawne when they have that conversation talking about you're kind of the villain because again he's not trying to be the villain, but it is kind of that. From a certain point of view, if in someone's story Flash is the bad guy because this is a guy that selfishly went back, fixed something in his personal life, and then created this whole mess. And I think that's always good when you can kind of either make the villain, give them some shades of good or some shades of they're doing these for the right reasons, or a hero where he's a great person, she's a great person, but made a few mistakes because of their power and they're kind of paying for it. So I like the dichotomy that they play, and Thawne's always a good foil to Flash.
Yeah. In the book, they do a better job of explaining this conversation between Reverse Flash and Flash while they're fighting at the end, because in the movie it's just him kind of beating him up and telling him, you caused this, and showing him, and they kind of talk about that. But in the book, it talks about how it affected Reverse Flash and how him doing this essentially cut the Reverse Flash out of time and existence. Like he's free to go anywhere he wants to, and it rolls into that because he. At the moment that in the book that he reversed the time flash, he stops Thawne, and by doing that, he kind of kicked him out of the Speed Force. And the only reason that Thawne even kept Barry alive was so that way the Speed Force would be alive in the 25th century, so that way he could exist. But now that that's where it comes to this point in this book where he's cut him out of the timeline now. So now Zoom can exist in any point in time, no matter what. And it explains that in the book a little more with their conversation. It was pretty interesting, I thought. Let's see. But yeah, that was a great scene in the movie because you're right, Barry Allen just getting his butt kicked.
And I think obviously every villain has this, but I think Thawne is one of the most villains that use the excuses of why he's keeping Barry alive. Whether it's in comic books, this movie, TV show, there's always something, right? And it's just like, I don't know if I believe you anymore. Like it clearly is, but it's just like he can never kill Barry Allen. I guess that's kind of a cursed thing, right? He can never really kill Barry Allen because it always affects him so much, and it might even take him out of existence or his powers. They can't do anything, but it's always my fear. Like I was gonna, but then I can't because of this. And Barry like, oh, okay, well, thank goodness,
I was thinking about it today, and the idea of Flash kind of I'm stuck on it because so. He becomes Flash because his mother was killed, right?
Right.
And his mother was killed because Reverse Flash comes back in time to kill his mother. So what if Reverse Flash just never came back in time? Would the Flash just never exist? Like I just don't understand. Because
it's the chicken and the egg, right?
That's the time travel hero conundrum.
Okay.
There's so much time travel in the Flash that it's like if you think about it too long, you're like, this doesn't make sense. It's like Back to the Future,
Right.
You can't think about it for too long.
Yeah. All right. What other points you want to talk about with this one? Anything that stood out for you? Other than Batman using a lot of guns?
Oh yeah. Let's talk about Superman a little bit more because that was like another part of the book that I really in the movie that I found so interesting. I always forget that he's like kind of powered by the sun.
Mhm.
I think I completely forget about that. But Superman's like one of those heroes that has all these kind of weird powers, I guess, because he was like the first superhero ever. They're just kind of strange, like laser eyes, but also flying, but also bulletproof, but also, and it's like he's kind of like powered by the sun. That's where he gets like his strength from. That's like his weakness, including kryptonite as well. But this concept that what if we found an alien and we just immediately put him away from the sun so he can't become so powerful? And that moment when he like sees the sun for the first time and he's like so beautiful, like all of that is just, I mean, every single character is like a weird, twisted version of who they are as we know them. But I just thought that part was like really interesting.
Yeah, yeah, the Superman was definitely interesting. I like the way they portrayed it, how you would imagine Superman to be if he was he's because they have him in that room and he's trapped under a red light, which I'm assuming is a red sun, like the one in Krypton, so that way he's not as powerful. But I wonder, one, how they would know that. But then again, this is 30 years later from when the rocket crashed, so it may be one of
Right.
those things they just discovered. And you can see in the movie too, they're kind of experimenting on him. Looks like they're trying to replicate him. It's
Yeah.
almost like a alien resurrection walkthrough type deal, you know. But yeah, yeah, I enjoy the way they did Superman. I like the way he looked better in the movie than in the book. I don't like his little suit in the book. It's almost the same, but it's like S-1 in the book, and I don't
Yeah.
know. I just liked it better in the
And then
movie.
he just like flies away. It's like, goodbye. Like, I
Yeah.
always forget that that happens, and I'm like, oh, okay.
I
Hey,
guess from his perspective, he has like just obviously the world's about the end, but wants to live some sort of life, right? Because he's just been so
Yeah.
locked up, just like even anything. But yeah, I like the way it's paced in this movie because you never forget about Superman. It's hard to forget about him, but they almost kind of make it seem like he's gonna be a non-factor. You meet all these characters, you see everything how they affected, but for a while there's like no mention of Superman, no really hinting at it at all. And then I just love the realization of like when did this crater crash here? And then they put it together and they find Superman. So I love that. I love he is very it's still obviously he's been through a lot, but it's still Superman. And that's the one thing. It's like everybody else has changed. Everyone's a bit more on the harsher side, and he is a tad, but he still has that hope, the classic Superman way. So I like that, and I like he's just like, and I just actually like the design of him. He's just this very, just almost he's Superman, the strong guy, but he also just looks like he could break in any second. So I love everything they do with Superman in this movie.
Okay, Katie, you got anything you want?
I don't have really a lot of comments on Superman. Like, I yeah, that.
No, you're good. No, we've talked a lot, brought up a lot of good points about Superman. It's crazy the way he looks in this movie. There's a couple other things I wanted to point out too, though, is Abin Sur in the movie is dead, and they've taken Hal Jordan is going to fly basically the Green Lantern or Abin Sur's ship for this bomb. In the book, it's not. He's just flying an F-35, and Abin Sur is alive and part of this fight.
Wait,
Or
wait, Abin Sur?
Yeah, Abin Sur is the one who had the ring before Hal Jordan.
The purple alien guy.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry. He
Thank you.
he-
I don't
he-
know that much
I was
about
the only
Green
one tracking that.
Sorry, but no, he's alive in this book, and he's actually it's in this book. He's going to join the fight if Batman decides to join. So that's the thing is in everybody's their hinging of joining the Resistance is Batman being in the Resistance for some reason because he's some kind of myth that everybody thinks is invincible, and they even say that in the book that everybody thinks he's invincible, which is crazy because everybody knows he's just a man. But they have that much inspiration with Batman, even a Batman who is violent and kills and all that other stuff. They want him on the side. So, but yeah, I thought that was interesting with the Green Lantern. And then we haven't talked about the Shazam family yet.
Yes, that is such an interesting part of this story. And I have to admit that when I read this, like I said, I didn't know as much about some of the characters, or when I watched it rather. And so I was like, is that how Shazam is? He's like 8 different kids. Like I didn't realize what a big twist on the character he was, but I loved the concept of that. It's like he's sort of like Captain Planet, where he like, all of them have to turn into one person, and I just enjoyed that.
Well, in the book, they focus a lot more on the kids. The Shazam family as kids. You don't see him as much, powered up. And there's a lot more focus on Shazam versus Wonder Woman, where they have a serious beef because apparently Shazam tried to talk to her and she pretty much almost killed him. and he has scars on his face and everything because the fight. And I like the way that they bring the whole Shazam family into it because he does die in the book and in the movie. It's just it's slightly different. I'm trying to think. I had it written down, but I don't have my notes in front of me how different it was. But I guess she realizes before she kills him in the or in the book that he's a child, and in the movie she doesn't realize that before she kills him. I think that's what I written down. Something like it's some kind of crazy thing where it makes her seem a little more dark in the movie than it does in the book.
Yeah, killing children is just, I mean, when you see that image, like it was the first time, like I said, I'd ever seen that. And I'm like, wait, what? No, like you're just like, that's horrible.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. And especially taking a character like that you don't associate at all. Like, even not that I would associate Batman with that, but Batman, has a darker past. Things could happen. This is just like seeing Wonder Woman, and she just kind of walks over his body, just very cold, just kind of like, okay, I've dispatched to this. What's on next? And it is, I kind of forgot about Shazam. And just, I remember when the screen went to just this kid has a sword in him and he's bleeding. I was like, oh my God, like that just really puts in perspective. Okay, like you didn't think she was messing around already. You didn't think she was, on a warpath, but she really is. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who you are. She's gonna chop you down. But yeah, the imagery of that is it sticks with you.
Yeah, yeah. They definitely took some dark turns in this movie. I mean, is this movie rated R? Is it rated at all?
I don't think it is.
PG-13.
Yeah.
PG-13? Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that bad, but
yeah, it skirts the line. I think if you had a bit more violence, but there's no like nudity or not much swearing, right? There's like some dams whatnot, but there's no F-bombs. There's nothing like that. So I think that's what that really pings you. As we've seen, they'll deal with violence more than kind of the other things. So.
Right. They probably wanted to walk that fine line and get more viewers at PG-13. I'm sure.
Yeah.
Cater to the younger crowd. But yeah, Shazam family was crazy. They explained Tawny a little bit more in the or Tawny, I guess how you pronounce it, the tiger, a little bit more in the book than they do in the movie, because I don't think you even see it in the movie, not once. But I'm not sure.
No, I don't recall Tiger, unless it was just kind of off in the distance. But I don't recall it being any main factor in this story. I would have noticed the tiger.
Yeah, they had a lot of secondary characters in this one, like the ones who were in the Resistance. I had written down the Cricket. Griffin. There were a couple more in there that was just like, okay, a bunch of secondary characters, and I really don't know if I've ever heard of them in a lot of different things other than that, because they're just characters I wasn't really aware of. But I don't know.
Oliver Queen has an appearance near the beginning of the film.
Yeah, and they drop. There was a reference in here. There was a Star Wars reference in the book. Not a reference, but there was a Star Wars line in the book, and I know that it was meant for people to see that and say that. And I was like, oh, okay, Star Wars, I got you. Same world. So in this timeline, Star Wars exists.
They still got Star Wars. Yeah.
I still got Star Wars. So
well, above all else, everything went to crap, but George Lucas still made his 6 movies.
That's right. But yeah, man, overall, loving this movie. Is there any scenes y'all want to point out? Anything you loved? We didn't really talk about the mirror. We did talk about the mirror death a little bit, but that battle was kind of crazy, and the fact that she wears her crown afterwards.
Yeah, dark.
Right? Mm-hmm. And Arthur even says it to her. He's like, why are you wearing a crown as a trophy? And she says, it's not a trophy, it's a warning. And it's like, oh, okay.
Dang.
That sounds pretty evil. But
yeah.
I think it hit most of those. No, but that's a good point. She kind of reminds me, obviously it's different, but it kind of has some Cersei vibes from Game of Thrones in this. Now that you kind of just even talk about that, but it is just that's just everything around Wonder Woman in this movie, whether it's a kid, whether it's her wearing the crown from dead Mira. It's just it's just kind of that, and that's I think this movie and like the book did is just kind of hits that nerve. Where like, oh, it's kind of like if you put a battery on your tongue when you're a kid, and like that feeling it would get. That's what it is like seeing Wonder Woman do all these things, because it's just like when you mention that, it's just like, man, that is terrible. Like every time Arthur sees that crown, that just has to be instant trauma right away. But she's smart, right? Again, she's not doing it. Some characters might do it as just to show off, as pompous, but she is doing because it invokes a certain emotion, and right there she gets the advantage. And again, it kind of goes towards what she would be as the good character. She would do it in a different way as far as invoking hope or invoking wonder, no pun intended. But with this, it's kind of the reverse, where it's fear and intimidation, and it's that is Arthur didn't have a great life in this universe.
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking too, like Atlanteans, they're not necessarily. I mean, I think they kind of, in the lore of Aquaman, they've modified this, but I think when people think of like Atlantis, they don't think of like warring people, whereas the Amazons are warriors. So it's like it's almost like a spin on that. They're almost like Spartans in a way, instead of like the Amazonians as we know them. They're like more hardened, more war focused, and so she comes from that background instead of how we're used to seeing her.
All right. Very good point. 2 points I wanted to bring up towards the end here, because we're getting kind of towards the end of the movie, was Enchantress in the book is a much, much bigger character. In fact, I don't even think she's in the movie, is she?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think she's in the movie, but she's a very, very big character, because towards the end she kind of, she's kind of working for Wonder Woman, and I think that's what it was. I think that was the part about Shazam's death, or Billy's death, that I was going to bring up. I couldn't remember what it was at the moment, but I think Enchantress had a big deal to do with that, because she's the one who, in the movie, Diana has Shazam, in the lasso, and she's making him say Shazam, so that way he becomes the kid again, or he loses his powers. In the book, Enchantress does that. She somehow casts a spell and says Shazam, and they all turn back into the kids again. That was the difference I was looking for earlier. So I thought that was pretty cool. And then 2 more things about the end. In the movie, he runs away from the explosion as it's happening. In the book, he actually runs to his mother in this timeline and kind of says goodbye to her and reasons with her about what she should do. And he tells her, explains to her everything that happened. And she asks, how many people died? And he says millions. And she just makes the decision. She says, you've got to go back and change this. So that was a big difference in the book and the movie. When the movie, he just ran back. In the book, he actually goes back to his mother and explains, and it's a little more heartfelt. He at least gets to see his mother one more time, which I thought was really cool.
No, I was gonna say, I remember that, because obviously there's some like the smaller details from the book, but I did remember that scene, and I do think that's kind of another thing of the movie I wish they did, because you get the reveal of, okay, his mom's alive, but then after that, you don't really get much of his personal life after, whether it's with Iris, whether it's his mother. He's just kind of off doing a superhero thing. So I think that could have added a little to have just a little more closure, and that would have been him saying kind of goodbye fully. Obviously, it's a different version of his mom, but it's still his mom. So I do wish that was in there, because I think it is a bit sudden, but I miss that scene.
Well, I think too, Barry Allen and his connection with his mother and with his whole family, that's such a big part of his character. So it's almost like, I mean, if you were put in this situation, I guess objectively you should be like, yeah, things are real bad. I should fix that. But I think having that permission from his mother, like you said earlier, is more closure, because she's participating in that, question herself, whereas in this version, he doesn't ask her, she doesn't know. But I would think, like, as an audience, we feel better hearing her say, yeah, that's the right thing to do.
And even for him too, because it's in a morbid way, but if you think about it, he's asking for permission to let her get killed again. He's asking permission for him to kill her, pretty much. And I think that even if she wants that, I think he would need that little extra push to be like, I know this is what I have to do, but I just need to hear my mom, my father kind of say, yeah, you can do this for the greater good. And even if he doesn't want to, hearing someone else say that. So yeah, I do wish that was in here.
Yeah, it's crazy, because he's going through the Speed Force, and he sees himself going back in time to stop Thawne from killing his mother, and he's trying to stop him, and he explains it to himself in the book as, it's like you shot a bullet through a windshield. It shattered everything. And he's explained, because Barry Allen, who's trying to save his mother, doesn't want to hear it. He's running away from him, just like in the movie. He's kind of running away from, like, who the hell are you type deal. But he explains it to him a little more. He's like, you're going to ruin everything. And you're getting that closure. That would be something that was really nice. And speaking of closure, bringing the message to Bruce.
Yeah.
It's funny, because watching the movie, it kind of tugged at my heart a little bit. But when I read the book this morning, I felt it even more. I don't know why. Like, could you imagine that situation if you're Bruce Wayne? I mean, haven't spoken to your father in years, then all of a sudden you get this message from another timeline. And he even says, you're a hell of a messenger, type deal. It's pretty cool. And I love that I don't think they mention this in the movie, but in the book at least, and I may have just missed it. He talks about how he has memories of that alternate timeline. He
he
can
gets
remember
to
his
like keep
13th
some of
birthday.
them.
hmm
Yeah.
So through all this, even though he still lost his mother, he now has memories of that timeline of being with his mother and growing up, graduating, learning to drive, all that good stuff. So it's a little bittersweet at the end, that he gets a little bit out of it. So
Yeah, no, those are great moments. That Batman moment is probably my top 10 as far as just like Batman moments, because it's just, you look at this character who would need the ultimate validation from his father or mother, and to get that, especially this is somebody that his whole life has changed, and his whole ideal and ideology as Batman is based upon losing his parents, right? So
Mm-hmm.
to get someone that has that consciousness to go back and say, hey, you're doing a good job, and even more so because he's taking a, that's why, with our Batman, we're supposed to have the more heroic one, and he's taking a better path, and just getting that letter, and he tears up, and then he puts the cowl back on. But yeah, it is I remember seeing that the first time of just, oh, Barry, like, oh, I have something for you, and it's just, your heart just sinks, like, oh my goodness, like, imagine what he must be thinking reading this letter, a letter you legitimately thought you would never ever get. There's no reason you'd ever
Right.
find a letter from your father talking about you crime fighting and beating criminals to a bloody pulp, but giving you that validation of you're doing the right thing. So it's a great moment and a great kind of capper to his story and the ending of Thomas Wayne's story as well.
yeah.
I think too, like it's really powerful for Barry Allen to be the one to give him that letter, even though, obviously it makes sense in the context of the story, but also because I think Batman and the Flash have this really interesting friendship where, at least in like the comics that I've seen and in the animated show too, it's like he's annoyed with his optimism sometimes almost.
Oh yeah.
He's
Yeah.
really fast. He's so impatient. It's kind of like, I don't know, like he gets irritated with him. And so like this story does a really good job of sort of fleshing out their relationship and how they're such opposites. Batman works alone and he's, even though he really doesn't, but you know what I mean? He's a loner and he's darker and he's angrier. And Barry Allen, like, has a family. He's like one of the few superheroes that has like a bit, a family and a big social network and things like that. All the things that I think Batman sort of tells himself that you have to give up to be a hero. Barry Allen doesn't do that. And so I think for him to be the one to bring him the letter and for it to be from his parents, it just kind of puts a cap on like why his viewpoint is just so positive. And then just overall to me, like the entire story just explains why Flash is important in general. Like I think I used to see the Flash and think, oh, I don't really understand this character. He's just really fast. Like that seems silly. Like, I just didn't really understand like how that's a superpower. But this movie does such a good job of like how, interesting the Speed Force is, how complicated it is, including time travel and all this other stuff. And I was like, oh wow, like this character is so interesting. Like I have to go watch the show now and like learn more about him. So I just kind of like both those things about that last scene.
Oh yeah. I am gonna write an email to Jeff Johns because I want to see what was in that letter. In the movie, they don't show you anything. In the book, you get to read a little bit of it. It's dear son, there's only one thing that I know about life. I know some things happen by chance. Then it cuts off, and then it's the love you always, your father, Thomas. I want that letter. I want to see what's in it. Write it for me.
Yeah, it's a lost in translation moment. It's, you just kind of have to hope, because you might get that letter, but it might not live up to your expectations, right? So you'll never know. I think you'll probably pass away on this earth and never know what's in that letter, Greg.
I can imagine though. I'm gonna write it myself. How about that? So, write it myself and put it on Wikipedia as propaganda. It'll work.
Yeah.
But yeah, love the way the movie ended. It sets up for great. And like I said, there's a post-credit scene too, which I would have never, ever known had I not been in the position I was in last night watching this movie.
I did not realize that.
And it's nothing really. It's literally like 6 seconds. So it's not. I mean, you can go back if you and fast forward to the end. I wouldn't, But it's kind of crazy, and I like how they use that to set up, the next movie, or set up the future of the franchise. So. Trying to think, there was one more thing I had in my mind I wanted to point out. Oh yeah, the scene where he gets a suit. You remember he brings the ring out and it's Zoom suit and he doesn't understand why. In the movie, he's like, he just kind of vibrates and changes. I guess he explains that it's changing the molecules to be a different color. Or it's some kind of scientific mumbo jumbo that's made up for a comic. And in the movie, he just does it like that. In the book, he's like, I could do that, but you have so much stuff here. It'd be faster for me to just make a new suit. And he zooms away and comes back with a new suit. So I was like, oh, it's
interesting.
Interesting change for almost no reason. I don't see why they would do that, but okay, no problem. Yeah, I highly recommend this movie and this book to anybody who has not seen it, especially if you're not a huge character or a huge fan of the Flash or don't know much about him or other characters, because Lisa's a testament to it. She read this book and it kind of got her into it. I think, Katie, you said the same kind of thing. It kind of got you more interested in learning more about more of these characters because it's kind of a fresh start and it's a really good story.
Yeah, definitely. It kind of reinvests you back into a franchise, especially like after being gone for so long from DC items of interest, and like especially not reading a comic. Like I've never been into comics. Like just seeing this movie, it was like, oh wow, there's more out there, and then it kept me coming back for more of the DCAU. And obviously when I saw that Arrow had come out, then I was like, oh, okay, like this is DC. Like I want to see this now. So
I'd like for the future Flash movies to work towards this. I want to see this on the big screen, but I don't want to see it from a Flash movie till like the third or fourth movie. And I would save it to reset the universe. Whenever you get to the DCEU point of wanting to reset the universe, use the Flash movie, use this movie, make an awesome Flashpoint movie, and reset your universe. It's a perfect opportunity to do it.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. I think it should be at the end of a trilogy of Flash films.
Because you want to feel for Flash. You want to know his story. You want to know why he's going to do this, or at least feel like he's justified to attempt to do this before he just pops right into it.
Yeah.
And it's just even the time factor, too, of you got to spend a lot of time with Barry Allen, I think, before you do this, because in this movie, it is his story, but there is lots of other characters that you have to tackle and focus on.
Yeah. Kay, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to piggyback off of the reset the universe thing. Like this is the perfect opportunity to bring in new characters. I think Warner Brothers and AT&T is more invested in keeping DC alive at this point. So, I mean, you've had actors involved in this franchise now for 7. I mean, Ezra Miller, I think, has been cast for 5-ish years, somewhere in that range.
With 20 minutes of screen time.
Yep. You don't want it to become Marvel, where I don't think this is a Marvel situation where you just cycle characters out and bring more back in. I think in this aspect, you want to keep the main characters alive, but also know that Ezra Miller's been here for 5 years and probably doesn't want to go much longer at this point, or like doesn't want to go past the 10-year mark being attached to this character, because I mean actors want to do other things. So use this opportunity to say, okay, we're going to take it like a Doctor Who moment. At the very ending scene, you're going to see all the new characters for the DC universe, and then use those to continue forward. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I like that thought. Well, y'all got any more thoughts on Flashpoint you want to bring up? Anything else you want to point out? Did we miss something?
I feel like we didn't really talk that much about Cyborg, but I guess he's not in it a ton. I like the idea of it's sort of the, I guess, like Civil War question of like, he's so close to the government now, and like Batman is really opposed to that. Kind of reminded me, like I said, of Civil War a little bit. So I thought that even this movie sort of made me more interested in Cyborg as a character.
Yeah. I mean, they definitely focus on Cyborg being more patriotic. They make it almost like Cyborg is with Superman in Dark Knight Returns type deal, where he's the government's go-to guy. Even in the comic, they have just a quick shot, with a window of him where it shows his shoulder, and all it shows is a little Made in America tag on his shoulder. So like it's showing like I am American, I'm patriotic. And the scene in the movie where he gets his arm ripped off, and you see his heart beating and he eventually dies, doesn't happen in the book. So I thought that was a really cool scene they added to it, because Superman's actually the one who sees him and realizes, they just killed my friend type deal. And it's kind of crazy seeing somebody rip, Victor apart, like rip his armor off and everything, and you just see the one part of him that's human. One of them parts of him is his heart beating there. And I thought they did a great job with that. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. My only final thoughts are kind of like you. I recommend it. I think it's kind of great in two ways. Well, three ways. One, like everyone said, as far as you want to get invested in the Flash, it has that. Two, if you want kind of a big, deep emotional story with some scope, it's there. And then three, if it is enjoyable on just a kind of a fun superhero action movie, right? You got lots of action, you got lots of just fun kind of what ifs and change up scenarios. And I also think it is a very dark movie. We talk about times with the final battle, talk about Wonder Woman, but I think there's still enough levity that there's always it never gets too dire where it's just like, oh, this is just a whole depressing hour and 20-minute movie. It's not. There's lots of light, there's lots of levity, especially lots of those Flash and Batman moments we kind of touched upon as far as they gotta go back and forth. When it needs to be serious, it is. Once we get to that final battle, it is pretty much okay, all the chips are down, here we go. But it throughout, I think it carries a good balance of, like I said, kind of having some hope, having some comedy, having some seriousness. And yeah, I think it's kind of one for everybody, whether you're a fan of this character or not, whether you're a fan of Marvel, DC or not. I think it has enough merit for multiple point of views to be one of the and like I said, it's one of the better animated movies as far as myself. I'm a big fan of it. So yeah, I would recommend it I would imagine you've seen the movie if you've gone this far into the route, but if you haven't, then go give it a chance.
Yeah, definitely. They stress a lot on hope in this movie, and they kind of give Flash that beacon of hope. He's the guy, unlike Superman, and it is in the kind of the regular DC world. And maybe they were just doing that as kind of like a point out to Sandra Hope, who's an inker for this book. Funny joke, but they yeah, they definitely make him, that's why Barry's the main focus of this movie, is because he is that ray of hope that almost nobody but maybe Cyborg and I guess the people in the Resistance that are kind of, a lot of no-name characters have.
Mhm.
And, he is the reason why it's able to fix. And the fact that he says Bruce, what is it? He says Bruce would have done it. And that's exactly what makes
Yeah.
Batman join, which it was crazy. It's a lot of great stuff in this movie, a lot of callbacks, a lot of crazy things to see, characters you wouldn't expect to be in different positions, and it's a huge lineup of casting characters. And like Travis is saying, highly recommend it. Check it out. I loved it. Katie, any final thoughts?
No, not really. I think definitely recommend it. I'm excited to see what they choose to do with the future of the animated universe in the DC realm, because we know the current factor of movies has ended with Apocalypse War. So I think having a universe is great, and that in the fact that everything looks continuous. Like, I know with animation changes consistently. Like, I mean, you can see it in like Star Wars, Marvel, like, but having a specific universe with the same animation makes it feel cohesive, and I think that's probably one of my favorite factors of DC is it just feels cohesive, but you can jump in at any point without having to know previous background, or even continue forward. Like, you could watch, I don't have the movie titles in front of me, but you could watch Flashpoint and then the Wonder Woman, I think it's Bloodlines movie, and then Apocalypse War, and you could jump into any of them without any background. And I think that's one of the best parts of this universe. But it has the little factor of still seeming cohesive without forcefully having to be cohesive.
Okay. The story's not contrived to fit together, but it fits together now. It fits together anyway. Okay. Makes sense. Okay. Well, anybody else? Any thoughts? Anything that I missed? My clip is empty. Like,
Oh, mine as well.
yeah. So is my coffee cup. My cup runneth dry. But all right, cool. Well, I appreciate y'all getting on here and talking about this fantastic book and movie. We recommend it to everybody, but let's go ahead and start to wrap things up and get out of here. Katie, where can they find you at?
So you can find me on Twitter at KGalstrap13. You can find, I'm a huge writer. You can find all of that at my website, slicerscribbles.com. I also have my own podcast on the same network, Geek Ultimate Alliance Podcast Network. You can find me on Thursdays. Bi-weekly Slice of Film is one Thursday, and then the other Thursday is Star Wars Alliance. So come check us out.
Nathan's going to be mad at you if you don't mention that bi-weekly is the sexiest of the weeklies.
Just
saying, he's going to be mad if you don't bring that up. So
the sexiest of weeklies is
right.
My two podcast shows. So
and they're both fantastic. I highly recommend checking them out. Lisa, where can they find you?
Hey, yeah. So you can find me on Twitter at ILTM Podcast, also Instagram, I Love That Movie Podcast. And you can find my podcast, I Love That Movie, pretty much anywhere you listen to podcasts. And I have a website too, I love that movie podcast.com.
Also, another fantastic show, highly recommended. And you're going to be joining us in the Geek Ultimate Alliance, doing a lot of things in the future, yeah?
Yep, getting
Good
excited.
Deal. Good deal. All right, cool. And Travis, where can they find you at, man?
You can find me at Travis B. Snell. What am I doing nowadays? I got Marvel Ultimate Alliance. There's just so much on the go, but things are starting to finally calm down. But yeah, on this network, Marvel Ultimate Alliance with Chris Balga, who also does World Finest True Believers, and then also Geek First. Well, who knows? Because at this point, Tenet got delayed. But as of right now, we're doing a Christopher Nolan retrospective. So that's what we're doing weekly. As every week we were watching a Christopher Nolan movie and kind of talking about his career, talking about what he brings to the table as a director. So I think when this releases, we're getting into like the prestige sort of era. So and that's my favorite non-Batman Christopher Nolan movie, so I've never talked about, so I'm pretty excited. But yeah, if you like that, if you like anything else, walk over. I don't know why you'd walk over. I don't know. That's what happens when I don't drink coffee, so these guys have an advantage on me. I'm just sticking with my water. But yeah, just find me on Twitter, and I'll be talking about something.
Good deal, yeah. Geekverse, fantastic podcast, group of guys, and gals. They're part of my inspiration for why I'm doing what I'm doing. So if I hurt your ears when you hear me, blame them. So,
great, yeah. Don't tweet at me. If you have a problem with Greg, tweet at him, not at me.
The great shows to listen to. Really, really fantastic. Thank y'all so much for coming on. You can find me at the BatDaddy52 on Twitter. Me and Travis usually are on here doing superhero discussions at Superhero DISCU1. Me and Travis also do DC Alliance, the DC Alliance show, which is at DC Alliance Pod C1. Really weird Twitter name. Sorry about that. Stuff's taken. But we drop every Tuesday night. And we're part of the Geek Ultimate Alliance Network, which is everything you need every week for all your geek stuff. Marvel Mondays, DC Tuesdays, Wednesdays comic books, Thursdays are Star Wars movies, Fridays animated, and we're looking to grow as well in the future. Check us out. Give us a like. Share with your friends. We also have a Patreon page or a Patreon account. 2 tiers, $1 or $5. $1 is just you love us and you love hearing our voices, and we appreciate it very much. $5 is if you want to get the episodes early and ad-free. Both well worth it. Any kind of donation is fantastic, and we love the support we've had so far from all the fans for the last. We're going on week 3 right now, so it's been a really, really great turnout for what we've been doing. I'm having a great time doing it, and I'm glad that I can have all of you on here to participate in what's going on. But let's go ahead and get out of here. Everybody needs some sleep or a little bit of rest. It's Sunday. Let's have a good time. I thank y'all once again for coming on. And until next time, y'all have a good one.
Thank you so much.
With you.